32-bit here. And we know that our project color is set correctly. One of the things you'll notice is these R3D files have a different color profile set to them. Let's go in and change what color profile or color rules are set to each one of these clips. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these, and it tells me that the profile is an sRGB. Well, I want to go ahead and change that, so I'm going to right mouse click, go to Interpret Footage Main, go to Color Management, and we're going to change the profile down to HDTV 709. And you want to go ahead and take your linear light and make sure that it's off and click OK. Now you'll notice that this particular clip has the correct profile assigned to it, and you have to do this for each one of the other clips that you have in your bin. And if you happen to have a lot of clips, that could certainly be a lot of work to go in and change that. So we do have a way for you to fix that. So the way that you can do that is you can go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and minimize After Effects, and I'll go into my Applications folder on my Mac and show you where to find that file. Then I'll show you on Windows. Macintosh users will go into their Applications folder, After Effects, and you'll see the interpretation rules right here and the root level of the After Effects CS4 folder. If you double click on that, you can scroll down about 80% of the way down, and you should see a remark that says this soft rule should be the last rule in the list of soft rules. Right above that, you'll notice this is where I've pasted the red rule that sets the red file to HDTV 709 and linear light off. This rule came from the red workflow document that came with the red plugin. You can copy and paste that directly in here. Let me jump over to Windows and I'll show you how to paste that in. I'll jump over to my Vista 64 drive so I can show Windows users where to find this file as well. Make your way down to the Program Files 86 folder, then into the Adobe folder, and then into After Effects. There's an extra folder for Windows users called Support Files. If you double click on this, you'll see the interpretation rules.txt. So then again, double click on that to open it up, or you can right mouse click and use WordPad. You want to make your way down and find that area that I showed you before. About 80% of the way down. Go ahead and put your cursor in the right place and then paste that information. Again, you get this information from the README file towards the end of the document. And then at that point, you just file save and you're good to go. And remember what I had mentioned before, which is the interpretation rules only apply to new files that you bring in. So any old projects that you want to have those interpretation rules applied to, you're going to have to interpret each one of those files one at a time. But let's look at what happens if I just re-import this Premiere Pro project into After Effects. So I'm going to delete it from here and then go ahead and re-import it. So I'm going to import Premiere Pro project. Find my project and open. Again, tell it which sequence I want. So I'm going to want the 4K sequence. Click OK. And if I take this particular file here and I click on it, you'll notice that it's giving me the HDTV 709. And if I right mouse click and go to Interpret Footage, you'll notice that it went ahead and applied both of those rules that I wanted applied. This makes life a little bit easier for longer and larger projects. And that's a quick look at how we use Premiere Pro CS4 and After Effects CS4 with the new Beta Red plugin. I know I've gone over a ton of information through this video, and one of the best things you can do is to take a look at the README file that was included with the Red plugin, which goes over in depth the Premiere Pro and After Effects workflow using the new Red plugin. It's filled with tons of information, including the information on color management in After Effects. One of the things you'll notice is that you can copy and paste that information that you see here. The rule to make the red raw files available is 709. And make sure you periodically check back on the Adobe website or Red's website for any updates to the plugin, as well as Dave's Tech Table for any new workflow tips. Let's look at a few quick examples of different CPU configurations. The first one we'll take a look at is my MacBook Pro 17 that I've been running. It has 4 gigs of RAM, an NVIDIA 8600, I run an Apple 30-inch display, and an external FireWire 800 G-Tech Mini RAID. Go ahead and double check that your 4K and your 2K are appropriate for your configuration. Again, for my setup, I know I need the 512 setup, so 2K should be set at 1/4 and 4K should be set at 1/8. The next thing you're going to want to look at is that your monitoring is in fact set to high quality. You can do this by going to the pull-down menu on the program monitor and double check that it's set to highest quality. If you happen to be having playback problems at any point in time, you can always set this back to automatic quality and see if that solves your playback problems. In many instances, setting it to automatic will in fact fix a lot of your playback problems, but you'll get lesser quality monitoring. So try it at high and see what your results are and switch back to automatic if necessary. Go ahead and bring up the activity monitor. You'll find that in the utilities folder. Here you can go ahead and float a CPU window. There's another utility that I use called Gauge, which gives me a little bit more accurate readout, so I'll go ahead and bring that one up and give you an opportunity to see the two of them working side by side. And here you'll notice as it's playing back, as it starts to play back between the 2K footage of the girl and the 4K footage of the band, you'll start to see a certain amount of activity going up and down on the monitors depending on how hard the CPU is working. And again, depending on how long your projects are, will also have some effect on this performance. The next machine is the Mac Pro 8-core. This machine's got an NVIDIA FX 5600 and two Apple 30-inch displays. I also use an internal SATA RAID, two 750 gig drives at 7200 RPM. And again, here you'll notice I'll go ahead and bring up the activity monitor and the gauges and give you an idea of what the playback starts to look like. And what you'll notice as it starts to play back is the 8 cores actually are all working nice and uniformly together to give you a pretty nice playback. Now the one thing you'll notice is the gauges look similar to the performance that you saw on the Macintosh laptop. The difference mainly being that this desktop is actually playing back everything at 1K. So to recap, the 2K footage is being played at half, and the 4K footage is actually being played at 1/4. Let's jump over to the Windows side and I'll show you the HP XW9400. This utilizes a set of AMD Optron processors. I use 16 gigs of RAM in these machines with Vista 64. I use the new Quadro CX card. I've got a Dreamcolor display and 4 SAS drives running at 15,000 RPMs. Just on a side note, another excellent configuration is the HP XW8600. I also run one of those, similarly configured. 16 gigs of RAM. This machine's got an FX 5800 card and dual HP 23-inch displays, and I'm testing some internal SATA drives running at 10,000 RPM. What you'll see on both the Mac and the Windows machine, if I didn't point this out before, is you've now got a yellow line that stretches across both the 4K and the 2K clips. You will not see any red there for playback, and again the yellow line telling you should be able to play that back in real time as it sits. So go ahead and press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to start up the Task Manager. Press the Task Manager, and the next thing you should see is the Task Manager window come up, and you should see all 8 cores, your memory usage, and your percentage of your CPU usage. And again, you should find similar performance to what you saw on the Macintosh playback as well. Again, 8 cores being a very optimum setup for RED workflows. And lastly, just in case you were unaware, I'll give you a quick tip on setting up your second DVI port for quick monitoring of your RED material. The first step is going to your sequence settings, clicking on playback, selecting your second monitor, go ahead under export and set your second monitor as well. And what you'll end up with is your second display giving you a full screen preview in high quality of your timeline. Again, making sure that your playback settings are set to high and not automatic, you'll get a beautiful high quality playback. Again, the optimum configuration for most workstations are going to end up being an 8 core with lots of RAM.